Okay,
in the second round. So,
gotcha.
but that's actually both of us were a little like, fine. They uh they took New Trier into overtime, which was a win in and of itself.
A big rivalry.
Very.
So he's a senior. He graduated this year. Is that correct?
No, he's got one more year. Yeah, that
Oh,
was
okay.
that was out of his junior year. So one more year of high
Understood.
school. Yeah,
Understood. I know you write about your kids from time to time, which I think is great. So,
indeed.
all right. We are off and running. So, welcome Heidi Stevens to I call this my Land of Hope and Dreams interview,
Mm,
a series, kind of based on a Bruce Springsteen title of song. It's my favorite song of his. I do a series of webcasts with a group called the Spring Nuts that are like unofficial Bruce Springsteen fan club. So we've interviewed like members of the band that he used to have in, like Jersey Shore musicians. It's been awesome. So, but this is my own personal thing, and since I read your columns every week and have for years, I reached out and
thank
you
you.
willingly said yes. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you for asking me. If we weren't college buddies, I might not have said yes. But both proud EIU alums, it goes a long way.
I actually was gone on a trip and I came back to a pile of mail and I got something from Mr. Reed, who was good friends with my dad. And
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, Mr. Reed, my dad went to high school together and graduated from Mattoon in 1960, and they were like lifelong friends. And so he's kind of like,
Oh,
so ever since my dad's passed away, he and I still stay in contact quite a bit.
I love that. I never knew that.
What a guy. The journalism
Yeah,
department at Eastern Illinois.
nothing like it.
All right, so okay, so before we get into some background, do you know why I'm wearing this hat? It's the Chicago Fire hat.
Um, is it because they're not abandoning us for Hammond or
Yes,
Arlington Heights? Is
yes.
it?
I'm
Yes.
not a soccer fan. I could care less, but when I read with all the hubbub going around with the Bears, and then they're building a $750 million stadium out of their own pocket, I thought I can support that. So there you go.
Out of their own pocket and right here in beautiful South Loop, which is where I live. Yeah, no,
So what
I'm
thought?
psyched.
So apparently, I was out of town for 2 weeks. I hear the news that they're it's official. They're going, right? It's a done deal.
Well, it's not a done deal.
Oh,
As of this weekend, they let Hammond know, the Hammond mayor and the Indiana governor, that they're moving forward with the plan to build in Hammond, but they haven't closed the door yet on Illinois. So we'll see.
do you think it's
Um,
still in play at this
I
point in
think it's
time?
still in play. I do think it's still in play. It's frustrating to me because I feel like it's a betrayal of the fans' loyalty and patience and an expectation that sort of like, well, of course, billionaires get free taxpayer subsidized stadiums. That's how all the states do it. And it's like, well, Illinois doesn't. So I don't know why that has become just sort of like this unwritten truth and this assumption that like, oh, Illinois politicians can't get anything right. They're not even, going to pay for the Bears to have a brand new fancy stadium in Arlington Heights. I'm like, I don't think they should. I think that the McCaskies are billionaires and they should go ahead and pay property taxes. Um, and if they want to leave the state or leave Soldier Field in order to avoid property taxes, they can. I'm not sure I'll keep rooting for the Bears at that point. I don't think I'll go to games. I think Soldier Field will be fine without the Bears. I live a half a mile from Soldier Field. I'm pointing because that's the outdoors. Um, Real windows, not a Zoom background. Um, and we get like the every event happening at Soldier Field kind of calendar, so when streets are closed and when not to park on Indiana and all the things. And I think out of 40 events this season, this calendar year, 8 are Bears games. right? Like Morgan Wallen's there next weekend, and Bruno Mars was just there, and Germany played the U.S. in soccer yesterday, and like it's a giant park district building on the lake, and the Bears sometimes have home games there. And so this feeling of like, no, don't go. We'll give you everything you want. Like I don't. They shouldn't do that. That's not good for the city, and it's also not necessary. Soldier Field will be fine. Chicago will be fine. It's I'm bummed. I love the Bears. I love following the Bears. I love going to games. I don't know if you know this, but I did bowl a strike in keg bowling, tailgating at a Bears game once.
Woohoo!
It is on Twitter and Instagram. Uh, so like, yeah, it'll be sad if that's all in the past, but it's also like, okay, then if you got to leave in order to avoid property taxes, then bye bye.
That's the whole economics of modern sports is just outrageous with just the money that we're talking all around. But yeah, if they're gonna leave over that, then go. Like, don't. We don't
I
need you.
agree.
The whole thing of cities and states paying for stadiums. Kroenke left St. Louis. After St. Louis built them the Edward J. Dome for the Rams, he just up and leaves and leaves. And we get St. Louis gets $750 million from the NFL for his actions. It's unfortunate. The Bears have been here since they moved from Decatur back in 1930 or whatever it was.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to say that like I love going to concerts, but going to Soldier Field is not my favorite place. It's like very hard to get in and out of.
Yeah.
It's not great.
No, for sure. It's not. And I have the luxury of being able to walk, um, which is the best way to experience Soldier Field because driving's terrible. Public transportation's like at least an option, but it's not a great one. You get off the L and you still got, a mile to walk. So yeah, no, I get it. And, pulling into a parking lot in Arlington Heights and having, your choice of bars and restaurants and all that, I can totally see the appeal. But as like a neighborhood dweller, I love a concert at Soldier Field. I love a game at Soldier Field because I walk home. Have you ever has Bruce Springsteen ever performed at Soldier Field?
Like in
I know he was at
1985,
Unite. Okay.
1985 on the Born USA like giant football stadium tour, but no, he usually plays at he played at the Sox Park. I call it Comiskey, even though it's not Comiskey. He played there
Yeah.
back in 2003, but usually it's United Center. He played at
United
Wrigley.
Center
He
last
played he
time, right?
played at Wrigley. He played at Wrigley a couple times. I
I
loved
think he
Wrigley. I loved
played at
seeing the
Wrigley
show.
and yeah, 2023 I think he was at Wrigley because
Yep.
if you read my columns, my friend John Duffy is a frequent interview source, huge Springsteen fan. Um, he was going to that concert at Wrigley with his wife in 23, and I was on the fence about going, but I was running the marathon that year, and the next morning was the 20 mile, which, if you know anything about marathons, is like your big one right before, like, and then you taper down before the 26. And I just couldn't do it, and I've kind of regretted it ever since. Because then he get sick and
He
stopped
had a
touring for a
Yeah,
while, and
about a month after that show at Wrigley, he had been dealing with a peptic ulcer for like months and just like powering through it somehow. And then it got to the point where he just couldn't deal with it, so he had some more shows lined up and canceled. So
mm,
it's a great show. Like I've seen him, and I'm not even gonna tell you the number of times I've seen him. I don't even know the number of times I've seen him, but
it's
it's just
awesome.
like oftentimes in our world, other people that go that don't know him, it's often referred to as like a religious experience, just because it's like
Yeah,
so he connects with the crowd so much. It makes you feel like you're a
yeah.
part of the show. Some artists, like I thought it was amazing. I went to take my kids to see The Weekend at Soldier Field.
Hmm.
My son was a huge Weekend guy, and he's a great artist, but like it was all about the showmanship, the staging, the
Mm.
lighting,
Hmm.
the sound,
Choreography,
the
yeah,
choreography. It's like a whole production.
yeah.
Bruce is all about just the music and making those connections with the fans. And my son said to me after I took him to see Bruce for the first time, he says, "Wow, that was really impressive." Like he's
Yeah.
not a fan, he obviously he's listened to it in the car when I was been driving, but like he was impressed with
Hmm.
the showmanship. So if you ever get a chance, I would highly suggest it.
I hope to. I definitely do.
All right. We are here. For those of you that are watching, you know that Heidi's one of my favorite writers. She writes, I mean, I mean, technically, do you still write for the Tribune? I mean, I know that's where the column is in, but are you a Tribune columnist?
I'm not employed by the Tribune. I am employed by a national syndicate now, and the Tribune subscribes to that syndicate. So you can read my columns in the Chicago Tribune, but I actually left the Tribune in 2021. I work at University of Chicago full time now, but I
Hmm.
still write once a week for this national syndicate, and so I'm in the Tribune. I'm in other papers around the country, but Chicago based folks would see me in the Tribune.
So are you in the journalism department at University of Chicago?
No, I am at a small research institute, about 30 people, called the TMW Center for Early Learning and Public Health, and we study the science of foundational brain development. So brain development in the first 5 years of
Hmm.
kiddos' lives, which is when the vast, vast, vast majority of brain development happens. And then try to develop programs and policies and push for, public policies that would support healthy development for all kids. Because in the United States, parents and caregivers don't get a lot of support in the first 5 years. So we're trying to study why that is and maybe change that. So that's my full time job is doing some communications work for them, some development stuff, grant writing kind of stuff. My title is director of external affairs. So anything with like external facing partners, the world of journalism, you end up sort of you get good at writing and storytelling, and then you try to fit writing and storytelling into other careers. And this one has been really lucky for me because I believe so strongly in the importance of the work. I work with brilliant, wonderful people. University of Chicago obviously is a phenomenal organization. So but yeah, I've been doing that for 5 years now.
Wow. Yeah, I remember the 2021, the D-Day. I woke up on Sunday, went and got I still get a physical copy, and that's one thing I wanted to ask you. I get a physical copy of the paper. I don't know how long this is going to last, given where I
Yeah.
live. Like at some point in time, the economics just don't make sense, but I got to
Yeah.
have the paper in my hands. I've had a paper in my hands since I was a little kid.
I love that.
But I remember opening up the paper that day, and it was like, you, Zorn, Mary Schmitz, uh, Don Tice, like gone, and I was like,
Oh,
"What?" And
Darlene.
I
Yeah.
saw the one. I was like, "Okay, well that sucks," but I guess whatever. And then I was like, "Oh my God, I had no idea what was going on until that day."
Yeah.
It was actually heartbreaking for me because it was like all the columnists that I loved reading every Sunday and throughout the week were just gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So a hedge fund bought the company, and they offered across the board buyouts to anybody if you worked there 8 weeks, if you worked there 18 years. And a whole bunch of us, including every columnist except at the time Rex Hupke, took it. So they lost every opinion writer on staff overnight, basically. Rex ended up leaving a few months later for USA Today, where he's still writing columns. But yeah, it, it's heartbreaking. I miss it. I'm nostalgic. I'm grateful for the years I had there. They shaped obviously my career, completely shaped how I go through the world, and how I view any conversation I'm a part of now. And personally, it was a loss to leave there, but I also think communities lose a lot when opinion writers aren't making sort of introductions and connections to topics, people, ideas, books, art, opinions that you might not otherwise make. I mean, breaking news is hugely important, rooting out government corruption, hugely important, sports coverage, all the things that, daily breaking news folks do. But I do think that that opinion writing and that commentary writing can kind of connect us to one another as humans in a way that's harder for some of the other beats to do. So I feel like it's a huge loss when newspapers lose those folks. And, and I voluntarily took myself out of that mix. So I have mixed feelings about it, to be honest, but it didn't feel like a sustainable career, with kids and all the things you got to weigh when you're trying to make those kind of decisions.
Unfortunately, the economics of journalism and the news business has drastically changed in the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that's where what I was hoping was going to happen. For those watching that don't know, Heidi worked for the Tribune. She's still a columnist that appears in the Tribune on Sundays. People love your work that I read to my people here. Um, but for years, there was a guy named Mike Royko who, along with Studs Terkel, Chicago icons. Mike was a hard-nosed journalism guy, but he wrote for the Sun Times and he had a column on page two of the Tribune for years.
Mm-hmm.
He left, and then a guy named John Cass took over, which was kind of like in the Roy Cove vein, but then it turned
Mm-hmm.
into totally something different. What I was really
Mm-hmm.
hoping for was that you would be the page two, the page two columnist, but that never
Yeah,
happened.
that never happened. Nope.
Um,
No.
the reason I love your writing, many reasons. You do. You talked about it. You make those connections. You make the readers feel like there is a community. There's a way forward, especially given the times that we're going through. In the last 10 years, especially the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But like it reminded like Mary Schmitz. I loved her writing. Um, you kind of remind not that I'm not saying that you're like trying to be like Mary, but it's got that feel to it. Like Mary made
Mm-hmm.
people feel human. That she brought the
Mm-hmm.
human side to everybody, whether it was somebody
Yeah.
walking on the street or somebody important or whoever. And like you do a
Mm-hmm.
very good job of doing that. So
Thank
uh,
you.
kudos to you for your writing still.
Thank you.
All right, so let's build back. Let's go back a little bit, and then we'll come back forward.
Okay.
I know you live in Chicago. You
Mm-hmm.
from the Chicago area originally?
It's from the northwest suburbs. I grew up
Okay,
in a small town called Dundee near Elgin,
Elgin,
about
Dundee.
45 minutes outside Chicago. My parents are still there. Yeah, lived there my whole life until I went to Eastern for college. And then out of college, I worked at the Times in Munster
Hmm.
for about a year and a half. And then I went to the Tribune in 1998 as an intern. They used to do 1 year residencies at the Tribune, and there was like a slight chance you'd get hired at the end of it. So I did one of those, and I got hired at the end of it. So I've been working there, had been working there since I was 23.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I know Heidi from our time at Eastern Illinois University, home of Burl Ives, home of John Malkovich, Joan Allen, Tony Romo,
Jim
Tony
Edgar,
Garoppolo, Jim Edgar,
Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah,
the two
all the
Jimmys,
greats.
Jimmy,
Right. Jimmy Edgar, Jimmy Garoppolo.
same thing. Um,
Right.
but
I
we
like that
worked
you
at.
led with Burl Ives.
That's a shout out to my dad. He would love the fact that because Burl Ives was from a little town called Newton, which was south of Charleston by about 30 miles.
Yeah.
He actually got kicked out of Eastern because he was partying too much. President said, "Burl, you got to go. You
Stop.
got to." No, that's true.
I love that. I mean, if you get kicked out of Eastern for partying too much,
It's like the Animal House. How do you get kicked out of the Animal House?
that's some high level partying. I love Burl more than ever. Oh, Burl. Did they
Oh
even
my
have
God.
nickel drafts back then? Was Thirsties open?
Thirsties, Panthers, you know.
Oh, Burl. My
Yeah.
hero.
So Heidi, you were the editor, correct, at one point in time?
Yeah, I was. I was the editor of
Editor in
the,
chief.
yeah, Daily Easter News, my senior year. Yep. Um, yeah, it was lively, right? We had a lively year. I think they burned the papers at one point.
It got wild. Maybe you were gone, but we moved from like the old gym or whatever that was to the under the Union, under the bowling
under
alley.
the
We
under the
yeah,
bowling alley. We literally worked underneath a bowling alley. Who was I telling this about the other day? I was just talking about this. Yeah, we were in Buzzard next to like
buzzard.
ROTC kids.
Yep,
Remember?
yep,
You'd
yep.
hear the ROTC practice and the chants and everything, and we're in this like just giant, almost warehousey building with our own press. Like, shouts to Eastern for having their own press. Um,
You know what I was thinking
and
about the other
then
day? The things that stick in your head, Chris Sepper, our friend Chris Sepper.
yeah,
I remember Johnny Boo was the press guy, and I still remember the craziest stuff you get stuck in your head. He'd be mad at Sepper, and he'd be like, "Sepper, why are you such a bleep hole?" Like that. Just him saying that, like, has always been stuck in my head.
that was
The,
a perfect invitation.
but yeah, we went from the buzzer, and then we were down under the bowling
Down,
alley.
yeah, they moved us to the student union basement. And of course, the student union had a bowling alley, so that the bowling alley and McDonald's were above us. So, like, I mean, how many meals were like a hot pretzel and a diet coke from that McDonald's? Like, because you kind of lived there. Once you worked there, you just kind of moved in and did your homework there and everything, right?
The Daily Eastern News, all the news that's fit to print, right? Is that what
Yep.
that was a
That was
tagline?
that was the
Yep.
tagline. Yeah.
So you were editor, and then so you graduated in '96. You went to
Mhm.
do the internship, and you got hired on there. So I have three huge regrets in my life, and one of them is, so I graduated in '97 and '98. I started getting into journalism, thinking that that's what I was going to do. I applied and got offered an internship to write for the Tribune, covering Illinois politics in Springfield, where my dad had a house because my grandfather had passed away. So I could have lived there, and it would have been 3 months. And I could have done that for 3 months and then probably gotten a job. But I
Yeah.
turned it down. I was so dumb. Like it was unpaid, and I was like, "Well,
Yeah.
how am I going to pay my bill?" You're so short-sighted when you're that age.
Hard.
Really, I turned down that opportunity because I was worried about paying my bills for 3 months.
Yeah.
So I deeply regret that. But who knows where that would have gone if I
Yeah.
had taken it. So you can play the sliding doors scenario all you want, but
Totally.
so you
Yeah.
went and worked in Munster, and then when did you go to Chicago?
April of 98.
And what
Yeah.
were you a beat writer? What were you doing? Just
That
out
was
of
the
curiosity.
internship. The Munster job was a full-time job. That's where I went after Eastern. I was a page designer. I think I got promoted to wire editor at one point. Like, I got to pick which wire stories they ran in the paper. Like, after college, I would have emptied garbage cans in a newsroom if they asked me to. I just
Right.
wanted to work in the newsroom. Um, so did a few different jobs in Munster, and then the Tribune gig was an internship, same as you're talking about, but it was for a year, and it did pay. And it paid a lot more than I was making in Munster. So I was able to get an apartment in Chicago. I mean, with a roommate and in a place that cabs didn't want to drop you off when you worked night shifts. So like I wasn't living high on the hog, but I was, I could afford my own apartment. Um, yeah, did that for a year, and then I got hired in '99 as a full time page designer again, like anything to get my foot in the door. And then I did that for a few years. I think I switched over to the copy desk. I was copy editing. Um, I would beg any editor that would give me the time of day to let me write for their section, um, and kind of worked my way up to a features reporter, and then eventually columnist.
How long were you a columnist?
Or let's see, I started writing a column in 2012. So
So 9 years, roughly
yeah,
ten
9 years
years.
before I left, and yeah, then now I guess 14 years.
I love the fact
Yeah.
that you feature authors. You speak with authors. You interview the authors, but you speak to them. You go to their book signings. You have book signings, so you're
Mm-hmm.
featuring all kind. It's really the human beat of Chicago, as far as I'm concerned. What's left of the columns that are there.
I love that.
Um, So you've written several things, and I have a folder, and I actually clip them out, and I know it's
Oh,
nerdy of me, but I have a folder
that's
that I
awesome.
keep with the columns, and I'll go through and reread them from time to time. But you wrote one. A lot of my people that watch my stream and everything are, Bruce fans, obviously, but they're music fans. And you wrote
Hmm.
one a few years ago about Taylor Swift that I asked you to read,
Hmm.
if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. You want me to read it
Sure,
um, out loud, like now?
sure, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
That's okay.
Um, yeah, totally. I didn't know if you wanted me to just sort of have it fresh in my mind, or read it aloud, but I would love to do that. I feel like an author now.
Well, that's one. So before we get to that,
Uh,
have you like I have Mary Schmidt's column collection right here. So have you ever thought about doing a collection of columns?
Yeah, I think about it a lot. I would love to. I wanna give a lot of thought to which ones and how what I want that collection to do and say, right? And how I would sort of introduce it and all that. So I definitely want to do that someday. I kind of have in my head like
Sorry, my dog.
but that's okay. Um I'll be an empty nester after this next school year. My son's about to be a senior, and then that's an empty nester goal of mine for sure.
Well, I'm sure those
Yeah,
of us that love your columns would love to have it in print in a book form. So,
thank you. Okay, so yeah, this is from June 9th, 2023. The headline is It's Relational Adhesive, the Beauty of Seeing Kids and Their Parents Sitting Shoulder to Shoulder at Taylor Swift. By the second day of Taylor Swift's Eras tour in Chicago, I was noticing a totally delightful phenomenon. This thing was a family affair. Photos of moms and daughters, dads and daughters, moms and sons, moms and dads and sons and daughters. A friend of mine brought his daughter and his dad. Three generation, three eras, he captioned his Instagram post. My daughter and I tried to get tickets. We couldn't swing the prices. We opted instead to road trip to Milwaukee the same weekend to see Chris Stapleton open for George Strait. Amazing, by the way. We've got two more concerts on deck this year. None of my friends went to concerts with their parents when we were growing up. None of my friends would have dreamed of going to concerts with their parents when we were growing up. My mom, ever the good sport, had to accompany us to Duran Duran once because my friend Tina's dad wouldn't let her go without an adult chaperone. We were 13. But my mom brought a book and an itty bitty book light and did her level best to tune out the noise until it was time to drive us back home. We were grateful for the ride, as we should have been. This is different. Something shifted, said John Duffy, a family therapist who specializes in adolescence. I never saw this happen before a few years ago. And it's not just like, oh, they're willing to go with their parents. It's like, oh, we have to go together. This is our thing. They put outfits together. They fire up the laptop and buy the tickets together. They want to do this whole thing together. That's the end of his quote. I take this as such a hopeful sign. A couple years ago, Duffy said he was counseling a father and a son who couldn't see eye to eye on much of anything. Dad hated most of what his son loved. His son resented his dad's disdain. This is John's quote. At one point, the dad said, I'll pick a concert, then you pick a concert. We'll go to each other's concerts. And the son realized, your Steve Earle isn't really that bad. And the dad would say, I don't actually mind Kendrick Lamar. And that gave them a little language they could use. That forgave so many major problems. It connected them so beautifully that they could really have at each other and argue and still know they have something they share and enjoy together. It's relational adhesive. Relational adhesive. I love that. I love it for kids whose parents are seeing and knowing and understanding them in truer and more complete ways. I love it for parents whose kids are seeing them model more than just the usual stuff laundry, bills, groceries, responsibility. They're seeing them model joy. Parents have always been willing to bring kids to Disney and do the fun thing when the kids are little, Duffy said. But that stops at some point. Kids will point out to me all the time, my parents were so fun. And then I hit middle school, and all of a sudden they're policing me, looking for vapes in my room, checking the parent portal, monitoring Life 360. What happened? New risk factors happened, new habits happened, new friends, new environments, new temptations happened. Of course, parents need to mitigate and monitor and guide and course correct. Of course, parents need a parent. But all of that goes better with a heaping side of joy and connection. And if we can swing it, top of your lungs, know every lyric side by side singing at a concert or in a car or in your kitchen. I called Duffy to talk about this stuff because I trust and admire his parenting expertise and because we have a very occasional podcast together. But I also called him because of something he wrote on Facebook. I asked him about it the other night. My mother died a month ago, he told me. Over the course of the week, over the course of the next week or so, my brother and I were tossing ideas around for her eulogy, and we realized that in her very long life, we don't remember her allowing herself or being allowed in our family to be joyful, to be carefree and fun. That didn't feel fair. It didn't feel like enough. So here's what he wrote after her death. Georgina was a force, impacting countless lives through her work and volunteering. And my brother Mike said Friday during her eulogy, she far too often had to be the adult in the room, making the tough calls, playing the bad cop, parenting with steely resolve. It was decade after decade of mighty work, too often underappreciated. She rarely enjoyed the luxury to laugh, to play. And she rests now, he continued. This song, this fantasy plays in my head. I pull up in a vintage convertible. My mom and I steal away to a little rock and roll bar and we dance. The song playing in his head is Bruce Springsteen's The Wish. Springsteen wrote it for his mom. It ain't no phone call on Sunday, flowers or a Mother's Day card. It ain't no house on a hill with a garden and a nice little yard. I got my hot rod down on Bond Street. I'm older, but you'll know me in a glance. We'll find us a little rock and roll bar, and baby, we'll go out and dance. There's tremendous beauty in making room to be our whole selves around our kids and letting them be their whole selves around us. There's also safety, Duffy said. It's a reminder that, oh, yeah, we can have battles and we can also have a really great time together, he said. We share this passion and this joy, and I can screw some things up, and you're not perfect. And that's okay because we also enjoy each other's company. And no matter what, we're fine. We're good. What could be truer than that?
Excellent. I loved your reading. Great job.
Thank you.
It wasn't even because of the Bruce part of it. I just remember that column sticking out in my head because you tapped into something that, like when I was a kid, I think I was the anomaly. Like the first concert I ever went to, my parents took me to see Neil Diamond when I was 10 years old. And then my
Nice.
oldest brother took me to see Bruce and ZZ Top and some other stuff. So I was like the anomaly, like you said. Like most most of us growing up, our parents wanted nothing to do with our music or anything. We didn't
Right.
want anything to do with their music. So I
Totally.
was lucky, but now it's crazy. I had a friend that went to see Bruce at MSG a couple weeks ago, and she said two 90-year-old people, one with a cane, like walked in front of her to go down the aisle to
Oh,
get there to see. You walk in, you see parents, their kids, grandkids. Like it's like four generations of
yeah.
people, and it's like we did not. Times have changed. We did not
Yeah.
experience that. We had our stuff, our parents had their stuff, and that was
Yep.
it. There was no in between. So it's a whole changing of culture, parenting over the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah. I love it. Duffy and I have talked about this too, and I've written about it, but there's sort of almost like a shaming or a stigma about the idea of being like friends with your kids. I think being friends with your kids is awesome. I think my kids are two of the coolest people I've ever met. I would feel like such a failure on my part to not be friends with them. Like they make me laugh and they teach me so much and they keep me humble and like they do all the things that I want good friends to do. And I hope that I do the things for them that they want their friends to do. And that's not the whole of it, right? You have to call each other on stuff and you know redirect and all the things. But I don't know. I do that in my friendships too. You know, my good friends call me on stuff and say, you know, that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. Or hey, did you call back the blah blah like you said you would? You know, like we hold each other accountable. So that's what I see you know in this shift toward like going to concerts together and enjoying each other's stuff is like a friendship at the heart of the parent kid relationship that you know even some of the best parent child relationships that I was around as a kid there was still a distance in there like my world and your world are not there's no Venn diagram there, right? Like I like you I love you we live in different worlds and I like this way better.
Absolutely. Uh, what you wrote was great, obviously, again, but it just speaks to like what I've done with my own kids. Like my parents, again, took me to a lot of shows throughout my life, but I turned my dad on to some stuff later in life that he didn't know, you know, when he was listening to music. But I've taken my kids to see The Weeknd. I took them to see Paul McCartney, you know, Ringo Starr. But I've gone to see stuff
So
they
cool.
wanted to see, you know. So it's been a
Yeah,
mixed match. And I said to them 3 years ago when Bruce went on tour, I was like, just go with me one time so you can try to understand a little bit of what
yeah,
why I'm such a freak about this. And
yeah,
then if you want to go again, great. If not, at least go once with me once. And they went,
yeah.
and they both loved it. I just took my daughter a couple weeks ago when he was in Chicago. The thing about the
Awesome.
Chicago show was, I think of because the show that he's doing right now, that in the last couple months, and he's done, um, very political in the fact that he's speaking
Mm-hmm.
truth to power to like what's going on, what we can do
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Yeah.
The songs that he's playing are very tightly structured to speak to the times that we're living through. It's called the No Kings Tour.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been a lot more, and he's talked about this. Like one of his great misses, great regrets in his career was that he didn't, not that he wasn't trying to appeal, but he just wanted more people of color there. And this tour,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen several shows, and for one thing, Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine has been playing with him on this tour. So I think Tom has brought in some other people that wouldn't necessarily go to
Mm-hmm.
see Bruce Springsteen. But like in
Mm-hmm.
Chicago, there was like this Hispanic mom and daughter, and I think the daughter is the one who brought the mom because she kept leaning in and be like, "Okay, he's playing Born to Run. Mom, he's playing Dancing in the
Mm-hmm.
Dark." Like she was telling her what he was
Mm-hmm.
doing. So I'd
Yeah.
love to see more people of color there,
Yeah.
and having a wider, you know, audience. But
Yeah.
yeah, like the stuff I'm doing with my kids, my parents, you know, they wouldn't have done quite what I'm doing, but it's great. So that's why I really love that column. You speak to a lot
Thank
of
you.
different things in that.
Thank you.
I would suggest anybody watching, they go, you have the Balancing Act, right? That's your Facebook page.
That's my Facebook page. Yep. Yeah.
And you also, you're on Instagram and Twitter or X or whatever it is. I've crossed out X off of my app, so I don't use that.
I don't go on there much anymore, I'll be honest. I used to be a pretty avid X user. It's gotten just a little nastier than I have an appetite for anymore. I still use it for, you know, to sort of stay up on the latest headlines, but I don't post my columns there anymore. So mostly my Facebook group or Instagram are probably the best ways to connect with me.
So check her out there. Um, would you care to share what you do in the mornings for people that don't read your columns?
My morning runs.
Yes, your morning
Yeah.
runs.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I right now I'm nursing a little bit of a back injury, so they've been morning walks. Um, but I hope after some acupuncture this week to shift back into morning runs, especially because I need to start training for the Chicago Marathon, which I'm running in October with my daughter. but yeah, every morning, pretty much every morning, I head outside and walk or run along the lake and take photos. And for me, the lake is really such a beautiful reset and just reminder of how small we are in the grand scheme of things. You know, it's tens of thousands of years old. Like, how many people have walked by that lake and thought, wow, look at it sparkle, or wow, look at those waves, they're huge today, or I can't believe that blue. Um, and here I am doing the same thing. And, you know, tens of thousands of years from now, people will be doing the same thing. So I really love that kind of understanding when I'm feeling any kind of way. Starting my days and as many days as I can with a look at the lake, I don't know, it just grounds me in a way that makes me feel incredibly grateful. And um, I like to share pictures of that because I think, you know, even if you can't see it in person, maybe you can see it on my on my story. I think it inspires some people. I've heard from people saying it inspires them to come visit, you know, come visit the lakefront. They might live 3 miles west, but they don't usually come to the lake, right? Or they might live in Hinsdale, but they didn't know that there was a lakefront path that they could ride their bike on. Or so, you know, I think it. I just I like to share what moves me and heals me and inspires me and the beauty of Lake Michigan in the morning is one of those things for me.
So on the topic of Chicago, if I'm traveling around the country, people say, "Where are you from?" I say Chicago, which is a lie. I live 60 miles west of Chicago, but you actually live in the city. You've been
I'm not one of those people that cares. Yeah,
in and of the city. It's just to simplify it.
right.
But what is it you love about Chicago itself?
So many things. I think that, you know, to be candid and authentic and honest about Chicago, you need to acknowledge its complexities and its flaws, right? It's not a safe place for far too many residents. There are far too many blocks that are disinvested in and schools that are not a great, you know, launching pad for kids to flourish and thrive into adulthood. The flip side of that, I guess, is the number of people that I meet, either just in my day to day life or what I'm looking for people to write about, who are working on that, who want to fix those complexities, who want to heal those wounds, who want to make it safer and healthier and more beautiful and more accessible for all people. And I mean, I could write a column a day about an inspiring, tireless, huge hearted person who's looking out for what's best for all of Chicagoans. Um, and so that's probably the thing I love the most. I love how we don't really have celebrities. I love that like Tom Skilling is probably like the biggest star in Chicago and he's a meteorologist. Like he's literally gonna read the weather at Riot Fest.
Wow.
I just like we just have no time for just like a vapid person with like boobs and nothing to say. Like it's like so not LA. And nobody really cares who you know, so it's not like DC or New York either. It's like, you know, I know so and so. Really? Like, do you go to your church when you were growing up? Like, it's just like people don't, you're just not, you're impressed when someone's interesting or nice or knows every statistic about the White Sox going back to the 30s. Like, actual things impress us, not, you know, a yacht. So it's just a very like chill and real place. I love that about it. And I love the stuff that everybody loves, right? The architecture, the skyline, the lake, the food, the culture, the theaters, the art. Like the art institute's amazing. My son and I walked around there for hours the other morning, free. You know, every kid under 16 in Illinois is free. Um, just yeah, it's got it all.
I I don't live there obviously, but I spend a lot of time in and around it. But I just love every nationality in the world has its own little pocket. You know, some obviously a lot larger. Uh,
Totally.
for people that don't know this, there's more people that they're of Polish descent that live in Chicago than any other place in the world besides Warsaw, Poland. It's crazy. I had no
Yes.
idea until I moved up here 25 years ago. But just you know, you see the whole gamut of the human race on display in like their neighborhoods and wherever. I'm always curious about immigrants and like why did you move here? Like who was the first person that moved here and like why here? That's
Hmm.
what I'm always
Hmm.
fascinated about. And then it just explodes from there, you know. I
Hmm.
just love all the diversity of the cultures, all the neighborhoods, the food. I've spent a lot of time in New York and New Jersey, and it's different. They're more hard nosed out there. You know, they don't put up.
Hmm.
They're going to tell you it's none of the Midwestern passive aggressive baloney that we've lived with all our whole lives here.
Yeah.
But it's just a different attitude. But
Yeah.
Chicago, it's like you know, it's nonsense and we could talk about it for hours and hours, but it's like all these people that have never been to Chicago. Oh my God, Chicago's so terrible. You don't want to go there. And it's like, yeah, you don't go to the South Side at 3 o'clock in the morning, but you don't do that in any large city. You know, it's no,
Right.
that's what pisses me off. You know, if
Right.
you can't talk about how bad Chicago is until you've actually gone and actually walked around, then you can tell me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've, knock on something. I've lived here for almost 30 years. I've never had anything happen. And I say that knowing that that's, tremendously lucky. And that's also not okay because not everyone can say that. So, the truth is a lot of people have terrible experiences in Chicago, but that goes back to my original point, which was like, and a whole lot of people are not going to sleep until they fix that. And I've met a lot of them, and that's kind of beautiful too.
Um, so my friend Elisa, who lives up in Gurnee, she said that if the late great columnist Mike Rourke were here, what would he say? There's been a couple voices that I've really missed in the last 10 years. Mike Royko, Hunter Thompson, and George Carlin. For me, those are the three that like
Mm-hmm.
I would really like to hear what their take on all this would have been in the last 10 years. Um,
Yeah,
she's asking, well, she's quoting Thomas Jefferson. If it were up to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate for a moment to prefer the latter. So I
yeah,
guess being who you are and your position, like I guess just if you could talk about the state of print journalism, journalism in general, you know, at this point in time where we're at.
yeah. No, great question. I often hear from parents who say, my kid wants to study journalism. Should I say, no way? Or I hear from young people, I wanted to study journalism, or I'm studying journalism. Like, should I change majors? Should I? Is it a lost cause? It's definitely not. It's never been more important. Literally never been more important. Um, it's the only thing that's going to save us is having truth tellers and eyewitnesses, because otherwise it would just be pure you know propaganda and spin. And a friend of mine the other day said that what we're witnessing right now isn't so much like one party in control versus the other party in control. It's like an organized crime ring is in control. um, and that doesn't get covered or revealed or solved without truth tellers, really courageous journalists. So it's never been more important. That said, newspapers are shrinking. Hardly anyone subscribes to like a physical print edition, like you said you do. Thank you. Um, it's really hard to fund the costs to run a newsroom through online advertising only. And of course, the business model of like classified ads and big print display ads, funding your, your bottom line, or those days are gone and never coming back. So the business model's been in flux for a while, but I think there's some really smart people working on that. The Medill's got at Northwestern's got a local news initiative that's studying nonprofit models and all these other models for keeping journalism healthy. So, um, the truth is, newsrooms are much smaller than they used to be, but they're still churning out phenomenal work. The Tribune just won a Pulitzer for their immigration coverage, and I think almost everybody on staff contributed to that package that won. And in the old days, the number of people who contributed to that may have made up a quarter of the newsroom, but um, it was, a smaller operation that still did some of the best work in the history of that paper. So I think there's a lot to be hopeful for. I would encourage people to continue to subscribe and support local journalism if they have it in their budget, because it really, really is important.
So as a reader, do you get a physical paper or are you reading purely online?
I'm reading online. In part, this is silly, but it's partly because I live in a high rise. I'd have to like go down to the lobby, get my paper, come back upstairs. But so I know that's terrible. But yeah, I get it online. I used to get the New York Times in print at least on Sundays, but God, that thing's expensive.
Yeah, it got up to be like 10,
Oh,
$12 a week. I'm like, oh my God, I can't afford this.
I literally like overdrew my checking account once because like my New York Times bill came due and they take it out in 6 month increments. And I was like, where did all my money? Oh, wow, that's what it costs. I mean, I believe in journalism, but no, I subscribe to everything online. Block Club, Sun Times, Tribune, New York Times. I did cancel the Washington Post after Jeff Bezos laid all the people off, which I know is a little bit of a double-edged sword because you want to still support the people, but I had a really hard time sending him any more money.
I get it. My friend Amir, it was interesting. So I have a friend named Amir who's a physician out in California, but he's from Iran. He immigrated here about 30 years ago. He and I were supposed to talk about an Elvis movie that came. He and I are like Elvis fanatics as well. But we were going to talk about the movie that came out a few months ago, and we set it up, and then that's when what happened in Iran happened. That's like when it first happened. So he sent me
Yeah,
a message. He says, "Hey, I really, 'cause his parents are still living there. He says, I'm not sure I'm in the mood to talk about Elvis given what's going on. And I said, that's totally
yeah,
understandable. Like, let's reschedule. And I said, would you want to come on and just talk about, what's happening, since you're from
yeah,
there? And he did, and we talked. Great guy. I love him. But it was just interesting that his parents were living there and going through this at the time that we were talking. Anyway, he
yeah.
and Cheryl are asking if you have any thoughts about 60 Minutes and CBS and everything that's happening there.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrendous. I will say, this is the thing that's been revealed about Trump over and over and over, why it's so surprising to me that he still has so many allies and sycophants is he will throw anybody under the bus. And you probably, some of your viewers too, probably saw his latest rant just yesterday. Um, and she was trying to nail him down about, even nail him down, just get him talking about this, fund for January Sixers. And he went on this rant about how, you're all corrupt and ABC's corrupt and CBS is corrupt. And like he threw CBS in there with everybody else even as from everything that's been reported, they've been bending over backwards to do his bidding and insert falsehoods if they need to, and anything to stay on his good side. And there's no staying on his good side. He's not loyal. There's no grand plan here. This is just guy with no moral center, and no human empathy, connectivity, feeling. I don't think, other than just sort of a empty desire for money, maybe. So it's disappointing. It's heartbreaking to see an institution like 60 Minutes, you know, dismantled essentially. And at the behest of Donald Trump, and to please Donald Trump, like what happened? I mean, don't you sometimes just go like, Donald Trump, like I must be, this has to be a dream, right? Like it's not, this isn't all for Donald the Apprentice guy, right? Um, but I don't know. I mean, I interviewed Leslie Stahl a few years ago. I'm kind of waiting for her to resign. I would kind of like to see her resign. Not because I'd want her to be like stay in the business and still contribute your talents and ideas, but maybe not for 60 Minutes. That's a tricky one. Anyway, I interviewed her a few years ago about a book she wrote, about being a grandparent. Actually, it was lovely. She's phenomenal. She's so smart and she's so brave and she's done so much. And it's just like, had these people who've given their lives to the the craft of journalism, but also like to protecting democracy, right? And to holding up the ideals of the Constitution and to living out their contract. I don't mean a written contract, their contract to making sure that people have First Amendment rights. And to see all of that just sullied and flushed down the drain because of a guy like Donald Trump is just, it's hard to make sense of.
That's truly the puzzling part for me, or one of the puzzling parts. Time after time, they're willing to drop any morals, principles, everything to kowtow to him. He demands loyalty, and yet he has no loyalty to anybody else. And I mean, it's politically expedient for him. He'll throw you under the bus in a
Right.
heartbeat. And yet, time after time, these people are doing it. For what? This is what,
I don't.
whenever this happens, it's there. I want to see the mental gymnastics that these people go through to excuse their behavior and their actions. Trump who? It's
That's
going to be all of a sudden, it's like Trump who? I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't get it.
The part, the really disgusting part, the most concerning part is like at some point in time he'll be gone. But until the last 10 years, I did not know how many truly ugly, spirited people there were around us every day, that he's emboldened the ugliness and the speech and
Right.
the hate. That's the
Right.
disturbing part. Like he'll be gone, but what do we do with tens of millions of our fellow citizens walking
Right.
around that we didn't know that they felt that way until now? That's what
Right.
really concerns me.
Right. I totally share that. Yeah. Yeah. I think about that all the time. I think that we need to double down on community. And, you know, find our corner of the world and make it better. And if that's, on climate, it's on climate. If it's on race, if it's on gender, if it's on literacy, if it's on LGBTQ rights, like find the thing that, you want to improve and just pull your people in and work on it tirelessly. And it probably isn't going to feel like enough at times, but it is enough. It is enough. Um, and I think that it's tempting to kind of hole up and say like, I feel this way about social media, like, oh, these lousy people own all the things, Meta, X, whatever. But like, I just think we got to stay on the whatever things we're part of that keep us connected to our people. Whether for some people that's a spiritual family, if you're a churchgoer or a synagogue goer or mosque goer. Some people it's you know a volunteer organization. But I just think like stay connected to your people. You know,
I think that's key in all this. At the end of Bruce's current concerts. He's ended with a speech, and they played Chimes of Freedom, which is a Bob Dylan song. Um, but he talked about how I think what happened in Minneapolis. So the two deaths happened in Minneapolis. He wrote a
Hmm.
song about it. He wrote it, recorded it, and put it out in 5 days, which is insane. And then he went and played a benefit for the families in Minneapolis with Tom Morello. And I think Tom talked to him and said, "Hey man, like we really need to be out there and talking to people." So he in this current tour he does like 4 raps, and he ends it with, the saddest thing for him was the disconnect between all of us, your fellowship, your neighbors. So get out there, do something, get involved. Whatever you can do, do that. If you want to march, march. If you want to hold up a sign, hold up a sign. If you got a song to sing, sing a song. Like whatever, but get involved. John Lewis, The Good Trouble, Get in Good Trouble, all that
Yeah,
kind of
good
thing. So
trouble.
I think that's what it's all about. Just staying with those connections, keeping our humanity, trying to do the best we can to find some joy in life and keep moving on.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And I always go back to that Dan Savage quote, and I don't have it in front of me, so I'll have to paraphrase it. But he said like anybody who tells you that joy is just a meaningless distraction, like doesn't know what they're talking about. And in the height of the AIDS crisis, like we would bury our friends in the morning and we would protest all day and then we would dance all night. And the dance was what we were doing the other stuff for. Like the dance is the point, right? Um, and I love that, and I think it's true. And I think our charge is to make sure that as many groups of people get access to the dance, right? It's not enough to just be like, I want to protect my right to dance. Okay, but who else doesn't get to dance? And let me work on that too.
Speaking of dances, one of my other favorite columns of yours was about the Early Bird Club.
Oh,
It was just so like I didn't know anything about it, and obviously that's why you're
mhm.
writing about it. But it was just so joyful. If you could talk real quick, I know we talked about an hour. If you could just talk real
Yeah, it's
quick.
been an hour. Gosh, it's been fun
So if
and
you could
flew
just
by,
talk about
but
the, if you could just talk about the Early Bird Club for a minute.
totally. Yeah, Early Birds. It's a dance club for women and women identifying people only, and it started by two moms, good friends who would just rent out little clubs around Chicago and invite women to come dance from 6 to 10 p.m. You're just over by 10, you're home by 10:30, you're in bed. Get up and go to Costco for executive hours in the morning. Um, I mean, the tickets would sell out in minutes. And I went to a bunch of them the first year. And the sort of, poignant and tragic side piece to that is that one of the founders had stage 4 cancer, even as she was founding it and launching this whole idea. And she passed away last year. And I got to interview the co-founder about, uh, that loss and what her life meant. And Early Birds was really a lot of what we're talking about, and still is. Her name's Susie, the one who died from cancer. They always put Susie's quotes up at the dance parties now, and it's like, you gotta dance and sing and live through the hard stuff. That's the point. That's why we're here.
I just loved it.
Yeah.
Like it was created by women for women, a safe place.
So fun.
You're home by 10, 10
Home
you're
by
asleep by
10,
10:30.
right.
You're not in a
Totally.
club until 3 in the morning. You're not worried about some
Right.
idiot putting
Nobody's
something in your
hitting on
drink. Yeah,
you.
nobody's
Nobody, you're right. It's just like I told my friends, I'm like, it's like the best wedding reception ever. But it's like all women. Yeah, it's just everybody cuts loose, and like the security, the like all female security guards too. The security guards come and dance. It's just like super communal and fun and chill. And yeah, it's pretty beautiful.
That's awesome.
And now they do them all over the country. It's not just Chicago.
Oh wow, really? It's
Yeah,
expanded out
they've
to
grown. Hmm.
nice. So if
Yeah,
anybody out there in a major city, if you're looking for a place to go dance in a safe
yeah,
place, check out Early Birds. Is it they have a
Totally.
website or something? Is it just
Yeah,
Early
yeah.
Birds?
It's Early Birds Dance Party, I think is, yeah. If you Google Early Birds Dance Party, it'll pop up.
I love it. All right, I'll let you go, but one last question. We got a big event happening in Chicago in very soon. Any of your thoughts on the Obama Library and the center?
Super excited. So I work blocks from there because the University of Chicago is just a stone's throw away. I'm super excited. I want to get tickets and go check it out. I have not been yet, but I'm seeing like friends posting selfies from there, and it just looks awesome. And it's totally revitalized that neighborhood. That's University of Chicago is sort of like on the last block of one of Hyde Park, and then it sort of turns into another neighborhood. And the library has really done a lovely job of connecting the two. And it's this big bulky building that you probably see a lot of photos of. But then there's buildings, 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 and parks and paths and a basketball court, and like it's really cool. I think it's going to be an awesome addition to the city.
Yeah, I want to go. I'm gonna wait for the fervor to die down, but I'm definitely gonna go. I've been to
Yeah.
I don't know 7, 8, 9. My dad was a historian and history teacher, so he and I would hit any presidential libraries we could along the way. But I'll be
Oh,
definitely be adding
cool.
that to my list. All
Awesome.
right. Well, I really appreciate you doing this. I want to be respectful of your time, so I'm going to let you go, but I appreciate you doing this and coming on. Like I said, check out Heidi's Balancing Act on Facebook. She's on Instagram, and definitely read her columns for sure.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Thanks for doing this. Have a good evening and great week. You got any trips planned for the summer since we're in the middle of the summer?
Um, Nothing big. I have to go to Virginia Beach with my son for a lacrosse tournament, and I think that's going to be our big our big vacation this summer.
Does he do like travel
Yeah.
across? Okay, outside
Hmm.
of school. Okay,
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
awesome. All
Yep.
right. Well, thank you for doing this, and we will chat up the road.
Perfect.
Thanks, Heidi.
Looking forward to it. Thanks,
Take
Ryan.
care. Bye.
Bye.
There she goes, Miss Heidi Stevens, who I've read many, many times on the stream. Check her out. Mary Ann, good to see you. Cheryl Hoffman, Alice in Dallas, you're fired from, you can no longer attend streams. You are fired. If you're not here on time, you're late. If you're not on time, you're late, Alice. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I kid. All right. Thank you to Heidi for doing that. I reached out. We've traded emails, told her how great her columns are from time to time. So I reached out and said, hey, would you like to come on the stream? And she said, yes. So here we are. Fantastic. Great writer. Check her out. Heidi Stevens, Balancing Act on Facebook. And in the Tribune, she's a syndicated columnist. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you for watching. Thank you for submitting some questions. I was hiking. Oh boy. Take a hike, Alice. Oh, Alice, I kid. You know I'm kidding you. I'm so sorry. I can feel the sarcasm dripping off of that. Uh, I can feel the sarcasm dripping off of that statement. I'm so sorry, Alice. Alice, you know I kid. Yes. Irina, thank you for tuning in. She is a fascinating lady. She's got all kinds of things to say. Great writer. It was very interesting. Thanks, Ryan. Good to know she still believes in journalism. That did make me feel better about it. I mean, obviously, she's not in it now, other than being a columnist, syndicated columnist that appears in the Tribune. But obviously, she's got a lot of friends. She still has ties to the journalism world. So that made me feel better. It feels like it's very dire and it's like a dying situation, but that's not true. So I'm glad that she could speak to that directly from personal experience. So I'm glad that she had a positive comment to make there. Alice, this will be on my page when I'm done here, so you can go back and listen to the whole thing. Very interesting. We shared some memories of being back at Daily Eastern News. She was the editor in chief for 1 year. Daily Eastern News, all the news that's fit to print. One of the few daily newspapers in the United States. One of the few daily college newspapers in the United States. Sorry, need to clarify that. And yes, Burl Ives was from Newton, Illinois. Burl Ives, as you know, the voice of the Snowman from the classic Rudolph movie, singer, songwriter, folk artist, actor. He went to Eastern Illinois. John Malkovich, Joan Allen. John Malkovich and Joan Allen were there about the same time, and then they went up to the Goodman Theater in Chicago. Started that whole thing with Gary Sinise, Tony Romo, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jim Edgar. Eastern Illinois University, one of the four state colleges in Illinois. Irina, okay, so what? No, I've never worked in journalism. Eastern has a great journalism department. I got my bachelor's in history. I thought I wanted to teach. I decided not to do that. Then I stayed on another year, took a lot of journalism classes, had an opportunity to cover Illinois politics for the Tribune in Springfield and turned it down. And here I am doing all the crazy stuff that I do. Never worked in journalism. I have my blog. That's the closest thing I have to writing, I guess. But no, I never worked in journalism. Alice, yes, unfortunately, I have to work tomorrow. If you're off for a long time, they give you like a day of admin to clean up emails, phone calls, whatever. So tomorrow I won't be working. I'll be working, but I'm not like working. So that's good. All right. So, yes, for those of you that missed it, this hat is the Chicago Fire soccer team in Chicago. In the midst of all this baloney with the Chicago Bears, uh, possibly moving to Indiana because of property taxes and blah, 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 blah. The Chicago Fire soccer team is spending $750 million to build a new stadium for themselves. No public financing. They didn't ask the state. They didn't ask the city for financing. They have the money and they put their money where their mouth is in building a new stadium. Whereas the McCaskey family, who owns the Bears, are worth $8 billion, and yet they're asking the city and the state to build them a stadium for $4 billion when they have no money. The state of Illinois is on the verge of bankruptcy, and Chicago is not that much better off. They have no money for that. So, all right, I am out of here. Everybody have a good night. Have a good evening. I'll be back on Tuesday with the stream. I think Stan is going to join in on Tuesday morning. Stream, Stan. Writing myself a note. I'll be back Tuesday morning, Thursday. I don't know about this weekend. I may have baseball games. We'll see. Okay, everybody have a good night. Be well. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. For those of you that missed it, this will be permanently on my page after I shut down here. Have a good night. Be well. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. See you further down the road.